This episode of the Cult Popture podcast was brought to you by our Patreon. If you want to tell us which films we should watch, get up to 2 extra exclusive podcasts a month, give us something to talk about in the post-credit scene at the end of each episode, or join us for our monthly movie club Zoom call where we discuss a film together, then please consider joining the cult and donating at www.patreon.com/cultpopture.
Richard, before we get to the episode today, I just want to plug our new video that we've made for the Director Project, which is our monthly project that we're doing with a bunch of other YouTubers, where we focus on a different director each month, and each of us make a video essay about that director. And this month, we all made a video about Hayao Miyazaki, and we, Cult Popture, made a video about Porco Rosso and toxic masculinity and feminism. It's all very controversial and
all that soy boy kind of beta stuff.
All that shit. So please go and watch that over on the Cult Popture YouTube channel. I wrote it and made most of it, but Richard, you're the Miyazaki fan of the two, the bigger Miyazaki fan of the two of us. Did I do it justice?
You did.
Thank you so much.
Go watch it.
All right, and welcome along to the Cult Popture podcast. You're listening to the Cult Popture podcast with the hosts of the Cult Popture podcast.
The hosts
Richard,
with the mosts.
Richard over there and AJ over here.
I presume you're saving it's time to play the music, it's time to light the lights as an intro for next week, is that, or next fortnight?
Yeah, well, actually, you're running next week's show, so you can do however you want.
Well, that hasn't stopped you in the past, bloody steamrolling what I had planned and just coming in with some inane attempt at humour.
I'm currently trying to figure out, do I go like, Merry Christmas, this is a Christmas episode? Because this is Film Franchise Fortnights on the Cult Popture podcast, where every fortnight we cover a different film franchise. And for the next 2 fortnights, we're doing parts 1 and 2 of the Muppets movies, and I'll get more into that in a second. And part of the reason for why the Muppets was selected was because there are Christmas entries in both the straight-to-DVD versions and the theatrical versions. And so this is as Christmassy as Film Franchise Fortnight is going to get this year, I think.
Yeah.
So I hope it's Christmassy enough. But yeah, Richard, today we begin our 2-part Film Franchise Fortnight's journey into the films in the Muppets franchise. Now, this is similar to Yu-Gi-Oh! Or SpongeBob SquarePants, where it's a somewhat fractured franchise to talk about, because most of these movies exist within a wider media landscape that is probably more well known for a TV show. That was certainly the case with Yu-Gi-Oh! And SpongeBob. With the Muppets, it certainly feels like an IP which transcends the medium that it's associated with.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, obviously,
just
like, The Muppet Show is kind of like the main thing. But even that's like, not necessarily what everyone would kind of know them from,
Yeah, when you think of the Muppets, you think of the characters, not so much what they're appearing in, whether that be one of their many shows, their many movies, or video games.
Imagine like someone says Kermit the Frog, and you're like, yes, Muppet Monster Adventure, the game.
I loved that game. Loved that game. All this being said, to fully explain what the Muppets is, their history and place in pop culture, feels kind of like a subject for another podcast. So in these episodes, I guess we'll be operating under the safe assumption that everyone listening has a basic knowledge of the Muppets. They know it's puppets, and they go on adventures, and it's
They're not quite a mop, they're not quite a puppet, but man.
A lot of it is inspired by, like, Broadway theatre, and so they'll like, be presented on a stage and things like that.
Variety show, vaudeville.
And Fozzie. Yeah. So we all know what the Muppets is. So this fortnight, in order
we
to
all
be
know what the Muppets is.
as comprehensive as possible and to separate what people probably think of as Muppet movies from what are also technically feature-length Muppet adventures. We're going to be discussing the 2 straight-to-VHS/DVD movies and the 2 made-for-television movies which exist in the Muppets canon for this episode, which include Muppet Classic Theatre in 1994, Kermit's Swamp Years in 2002, It's a Very Merry Muppet Christmas Movie, also in 2002, and The Muppets Wizard of Oz in 2005. Now, last film franchise Fortnights, we did say we'd also be discussing A Muppets Christmas Letters to Santa from 2008, but upon further research and the director on Twitter confirming this to us, this is not a 80-minute long TV special as Wikipedia erroneously suggests. It actually clocks in at 55 minutes at its extended edition, which you watched and said was just bloopers.
So it's like the like 45-ish minutes or something like that, and then it's like 55, but it's just 3 separate blooper reels.
That is so strange.
But yeah, that's correct. I didn't actually see that he had confirmed that for us.
Yeah, he did. He did it this morning. So that's Kirk Thatcher on Twitter. Go follow him because he gets back to us, and that makes him good in our books. While it would have been nice to double up the Christmas-themed movies, we won't be discussing that film today because it's under an hour, and that was our benchmark. That was our criteria, because if we did include anything under an hour as a Muppets non-theatrical movie, we would be covering probably like 30 films, quotation marks. So we got to draw the line somewhere, and that seemed like a reasonable place to do it.
And that's not like an overall rule for film franchise Fortnights. It's just it's a Muppets one that we figured, okay, we can draw this line in the sand and still have enough on one side that it's a good enough sample size to talk about.
Yep, and I do think on a macro level, I think it's cool to kind of experience the Muppets in a form that's more associated with their like constant TV output than just jumping straight into the movies. So we go and watch the theatrical movies next fortnight, and it's like we know a little bit more about what's expected of the Muppets and the world. Because overall, I'm not actually that familiar with the Muppets. I am in the same way I'm familiar with Mickey Mouse, but like I've never really watched the Muppet Show, or I've seen some of the movies.
Dive deep into the lore. Yeah. If we want to talk about our experience with the Muppets before we get to any of the films, I would quite happily do that. Yeah, is that what you want to do? So I've always been a fan of the Muppets, but my main kind of memory and first like big proper exposure to the Muppets was when I was, I don't know, I would have been like 10 or below 10, I think. We went on a family trip to Europe, and we went around, went around a bit of the UK, went to Scotland, and went to France. And in France, another fun story about there, we unbeknownst to us, were staying in like a very gay district of France, like kind of like, and Kylie Minogue's Can't Get You Out of My Head had just come out, so I could actually tell you when we were there. Can't Get You, I think it was 2001, so it would have been, what was that, 8? Yeah, so they had just come out, and the place next door to where we were staying had this like party all night long where they literally played that song non-stop for like 15 hours.
Wow.
On repeat, so that was fun. But while the place we were staying, though, it had like the entire VHS collection of the Muppet Show.
Wow.
And it was like, everything around us was in French, but this Muppet Show was in English. So it was like this cool thing that me and my sister were able to latch on to. And so anytime we were at the apartment, we were just watching the Muppets. And so that's kind of like my main memory of France, is sitting in this apartment watching the Muppet Show.
That's very cute. I don't have an equivalent experience with the Muppets. They've just always been there, and I've always liked them, but I've never gotten into them. I think I would like to watch the Muppet Show, because I think that these movies have certainly revealed how much I enjoy the Muppets to me without realizing it. So, yeah, we're going to be discussing the 4 non-theatrical movies today, and all of this is somewhat perplexing because with the 8 theatrically released that we'll be covering next fortnight, officially by my count, there are 12 Muppet movies, but when you Google how many Muppet movies there are, it says 13, but doesn't tell you which it's counting.
Right.
So it's possible we've missed something here, and I don't think it'll be Letters to Christmas because we had to actually go through each individual one-off Muppets special to see how long it is.
Yeah, well, in the
it wasn't categorically listed, including all of them.
Yeah, well, on Wikipedia, it counts. So it's got like a film section. It has feature, which is the 8 we're doing next week, or next fortnight, and then television. It has the 4 we're doing plus an extra 2. Called Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas and The Christmas Toy, which are both direct to TV, but they're like 40 minutes long.
Yeah, correct. Cool. So let's jump right into it.
That means that there would be 14, not 13. So it's like...
Yeah. So what is the answer, right?
Yeah.
So this is possibly the loosest in terms of like comprehensive coverage, I'm ashamed to say, we've ever done on the show because
you're lucky you're getting anything, so...
Until we got a tweet back from the director, which I'll actually pull up, I wasn't 100% sure that an 80-minute cut of Letters to Santa didn't exist. Because... You know, how was I to know? I asked on the Muppets subreddit and they said, I don't think this exists, but no one was confident. So I tweeted Kirk R. Thatcher and said, according to Wikipedia, there's an 80-minute extended edition of A Muppets Christmas Letters to Santa. Is this true? Trying to find it online and can only find a 55-minute one and a 46-minute one. And he said, no, it was always an hour-long special, so even the first rough edit would not have been that long. The first rough edit of A Very Merry Muppet Christmas was 110 minutes, though. 30 minutes had to be edited out, so entire scenes were removed. It's like, okay, well, I didn't ask about that, but thank you, Kirk.
We should get him on the podcast.
Sure, let's do it. He's in his bio, it says Kirk R. Thatcher, and then there's a frog emoji, a pig emoji, and a laughing, crying emoji, representing Kermit, Miss Piggy,
and the fun we're about to have.
Cool. So, let's kick it off with what is maybe the least movie we've ever covered on Film Franchise Fortnights, which is Muppet Classic Theatre or Muppet Family Theatre in the Republic of Ireland or Muppet Fairy Tales in the UK. And this came out in 1994, was directed by David Grossman. Doesn't have a critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. It does have an audience score. What do you think that is?
68.
74. Which is like, yep, who's the audience? Who's watching this movie?
Yeah.
Little babies. Calls to 74. Can you tell us what it's about? What this showcase of the Muppets is about?
All right, let me just pull up so I make sure I get all these stories correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a showcase of 6 different public domain stories, and it's presented by Gonzo and Rizzo, the rat, and they all star the Muppets.
So first one is the 3 Little Pigs. One of the pigs obviously being Miss Piggy. And
I think it's a 4th pig is Miss Piggy, isn't it? Or is she the one who builds your house?
She's the
bricks?
brick house pig.
Okay.
She's a brick.
Built like a brick house.
House. And then you've got the story of King Midas, which is played by Kermit the Frog, and the satyr is Gonzo. Then you've got the boy who cried wolf, once again Gonzo. Gonzo's really like the Mo of these, where he's overrepresented in these things. Right. Although no, he is like just part of the main cast. So it's not like Mo, but he's also
You're referring to how often Mo was in Treehouse of Horror episodes, right? Yeah.
So he keeps making these wild claims, and the mayor of the town, Kermit, eventually says, "Shut up, stop. We're going to stop believing you." And then a wolf shows up, and everyone knows the story. Then you got Rumpelstiltskin.
Again played by Gonzo.
So Kermit's the king. Miss Piggy is the potential who makes the deal with Rumpelstiltskin to spin straw into gold. And then they manage to guess his name. eventually. You know how it works. Then you got The Emperor's New Clothes, which is Rizzo the Rat and his compatriots convince Fozzie that they're making him a brand new outfit that is made of a magical material that only elegant people can see, and so due to his hubris, he says, "Oh yeah, I can see it," and he goes naked. And then the last one is The Elves and the Shoemaker, which is
is it Kermit and Robin?
Yeah, so Kermit and his nephew Robin are the local. He's the local shoemaker. They're not selling very well. But then in the middle of the night, some elves, or Rizzo interrupts the telling of the story and makes it to the Elvis, or like they're all Elvis impersonators, and they make blue suede shoes in the middle of the night. So it's like all these elves that are just, you have the coiffed hair and leather jackets, and yeah, and it's very funny. And then all of this is a musical as well, like this VHS, and so each one kind of has a song that sums up the theme of that segment.
My favorite song was in The Boy Who Cried Wolf, which is the song they sing when they're like, "Shut up, boy who cried wolf," and it goes, "Who do you think you're fooling? Yeah, right, sure. We've heard it all." It's like, da 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 da, and we've heard it all before. I'll just include a clip on it. It's really, really. You pulled the wool right over our eyes too many times before.
Who do you think you're fooling? Yeah, right, sure. I guess the sky is falling. Hey, we've heard it all before.
You pulled the wool right over our eyes too many times with all your lies.
So who do you think you're fooling?
Yeah, right, sure.
Yeah, it's very fun. This is the kind of VHS that your parents somehow obtain when you're 4 years old, and you just watch it till the tape wears out and it doesn't work anymore. So very, very fun. Did you have a favorite story or favorite song?
I did like the Elvis and the Shoemaker. Yeah, right, sure. That was my favorite song. That was the one that kind of stuck in my mind, and I was like, yeah, this is a song.
Yeah,
but yeah, the Elvis and the Shoemaker was fun, and it's funny, like because I being a fan of the Muppets, and I've got my favorite Muppets, and there's some that I thought were annoying, but then some in these watching these four films, yeah, like Rizzo and Pepe the Prawn are the two that I really came to appreciate and be like, not that I ever disliked them, kind of thing, but maybe didn't get them so much. But in this, I was like, oh god, yes, this is hilarious.
Yeah, no, I like those characters. So what I found interesting about Muppets classic theatre was, out of these 6 stories, let's say King Midas, The Boy Who Cried Wolf, actually all of them except the 3 Little Pigs were stories I didn't realize how little I knew about them. Like, I knew the basics, but then it's like what did I know about King Midas? He can turn things to gold. That's all I knew. I didn't really know. I couldn't remember what The Emperor's New Clothes was fully about. Elves and the Shoemaker feels like something I forgot even existed till I watched this. So it was interesting to see these stories told, and I thought King Midas was really interesting because my understanding of the story was that it's about the hubris of King Midas, but in this version King Midas is played by Kermit, and it's actually Miss Piggy who plays his greedy wife who's got the hubris and convinces him to want gold, and so I thought that was an interesting way to like adapt the story. Maybe the original King Midas story is a greedy wife. I didn't think it was. So I thought that was a cool way to adapt the story, I guess. This is very, very short, this film. It's maybe just over an hour. And so not a lot to talk about really, other than it's a good time, and if you have little children, this is something you can probably both enjoy.
The full thing's on YouTube as well.
Yeah, exactly. So the only other thing I really have to talk about with Muppets Classic Theatre is a fun goof from IMDb. Our friends over at IMDb. This is in the goof section. It says, when Rizzo comes in and whispers something to Kermit during The Elves and the Shoemaker, it is obviously not Rizzo's voice. This is because Steve Whitmire was already performing Kermit in this scene. The Muppets typically use a method of substitution, then dub in the correct voice later, but appears in this instance was overlooked. The voice is almost certainly that of Dave Goelz. So there's a goof in it where they didn't overdub someone else playing Rizzo at one point, apparently. Which is an interesting little peek behind the curtain into how they do the Muppets.
Yeah, because Steve Whitmire no longer voices Kermit, and because he was fired a couple of years ago, and so if you watch Muppets Now, I think is the kind of main thing that on Disney Plus, the main thing that the new guy has voiced him, and I don't like it. I don't want the new Kermit. I'm obviously Jim Henson is the OG, but yeah, it's interesting reading about Steve Whitmire because apparently he just kind of like. He'd been doing it for he'd been with the Muppets since the beginning, and they just one day were like, "No, fuck, get out." But it was like,
didn't he complain about how Kermit's character was being treated in the Muppets NBC show? Wasn't that what happened?
Yeah, there's a lot of creative differences and complaints, and apparently, one of the issues I was reading is that he refused to let anyone else play Kermit, which would mean that if they wanted the Muppets at a the opening of a mall kind of thing, and Steve didn't want to do it because it's just a mall opening, who cares? That means that Kermit can't be there kind of thing.
Right.
And so it's
but it also means he has to be in things like Kermit's Swamp Years, which he probably is too busy for as well. It's strange that people would complain about a new Kermit voice actor because every motherfucker in the world can do a Kermit voice.
Yeah, I guess the main thing is that you have to be a good puppeteer as well.
Right. It's weird that they would even combine those things. I would think voice acting and puppeteering would be
because
entirely
it's
separate.
You have to be able to...
I guess it's acting, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's just a form of acting. It's because your hands are oh god, there's so much emotion they're able to get out of Kermit just by it's essentially like a hand and just moving the top fingers around. They can make him look worried or thoughtful, or it's incredible because he's such a simple puppet, but it's a fantastic design.
Yeah. All right, so 2002, we saw the release of Kermit's Swamp Years. This was, Muppet Classic Theatre was straight to VHS, this is straight to DVD. This was directed by David Gumpel. It doesn't have a critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, but it does have an audience score. Do you want to guess what that is?
68.
36, so not very popular with the children who are presumably watching this movie. What is Kermit's Swamp Years about?
So it's about Kermit's Swamp Years, really. It's
partially. He's not there for that long.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a young Kermit, but he's not that much younger.
Yeah, the puppet's the same puppet.
Yeah. But so he's got his friends, Croaker the Frog, Goggles the Toad, and then there's a bad guy as well. What's his name? Or the bullfrog, Blotch.
Blotch, yeah.
Yeah, so they essentially they get separated. They get sent to a pet store, a. So the bullfrog.
It's Finding Nemo. It's Finding Nemo.
Yeah. So it ends up that Kermit and his friend Croaker have to go on a journey to rescue Goggles and Blotch because they're going to be dissected in a school classroom
by an evil science teacher. And it ends revealing that it ends when Kermit asks him to stop in front of the whole class, revealing that frogs can talk. And we learned that the science teacher, when he was young and first about to dissect a frog, the frog asked him not to do it as well. And that's his sort of dark origin story. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But I'd actually seen this movie before.
Really?
This is one of the only Muppet movies I had seen before. Yeah, I saw it. We would have got it out on DVD in 2002. We must have. And I remember the CGI fly character at the start. Who's
Horace DeFly.
Yeah, he's one of the only fully CGI Muppets. I remember what the characters looked like. I didn't remember too much else, but yeah, I'd seen this before, and it was cool to revisit it. What do you think of this film?
I thought it was fun. That's the thing, is that it's the Muppets. It's
exactly
the worst Muppet film, or the worst Muppets content ever made is going to be a 3 out of 10. I did actually rank some of these 2.5 or something like that. Just trying to go off like a what's it attempting to do, like if the best Muppet movie is a 5, like that kind of thing. But yeah, like I'm always going to enjoy the Muppets. And when we realized that there was no extended edition of Muppets Letters to Santa, I was like 12 minutes into a 45-minute thing. So I was like, I'm just going to watch the rest. Like I'm not like I believe it was John Lennon who said time spent watching the Muppets was not time wasted at all.
Wow. That's really beautiful. I agree. The Muppets is, like, puppetry is so magical, so I'm always going to enjoy watching it, even if it's a straight-to-DVD Muppet movie such as this.
It's one of those things, like, because like, animation obviously offers its own thing, and then, like, stop motion, but yeah, there's just something so... And God, like, seeing them interact with, like, real people, it's like, God, that must be so fun as an actor to be acting opposite the Muppets. Like, if I ever get like famous, and like no matter how famous and no matter how well respected I am, and appearing with the Muppets would seem beneath me, I will do anything. Like if I get a call from the Jim Henson Company, I am fucking right there.
Yeah. So I reckon because of that, this may be the best collection of non-theatrical franchise films we've ever covered on the podcast.
Yeah.
Like, in terms of what I usually expect from these kinds of movies, it's usually a lot lower. But because I just can passively watch and enjoy the Muppets, I thought these were a lot of fun. This film, though, it does paint a strange picture of the Muppet universe, and this is sort of some of the meat on the bone of this episode that I want to discuss with you. Let me ask you something. Are Muppet frogs still considered frogs? Because this movie essentially says there is no difference.
Right, yeah. Do we
In
see
fact,
any
we don't
real
see
frogs?
you don't see real frogs, but you do see a real pig. You see a real pig, and it chases Kermit, and he goes,
like,
I hope I'll never see one of them again.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be like, get it, because he gets with Miss Piggy later on in life. So it brings up questions around how we treat sentient Muppet animals compared to regular animals, or is the implication that we as humans in real life can't see the difference?
Yeah, unless you do bath salts.
Yeah, right. So,
maybe like if the camera would have switched to that pig's perspective, it would like see itself as a Muppet, you know?
Maybe,
and it would be chasing Kermit, who would be a real frog.
Pilgrim the dog, who's another character in this movie, Pilgrim is sometimes a real dog and sometimes a Muppet, depending on what they're trying to do with the character. So that would suggest this. But then they make a big deal out of frogs being able to talk. But earlier in the film, when Kermit first gets to the city, like a kid just walks up to him and says hi and talks to him as if he was just another person. But then at the end, everyone is shocked to see that Muppets can talk. What I'm concerned about, Richard, is that if we're dissecting frogs, and some of them are clearly sentient, and it also doesn't seem to be a secret, is maybe something happens between Kermit's swamp years and when the Muppet show is big, because in the canon of the Muppets, people are fine talking to these animals then, but like, it's like Pokemon. It's like with Pokemon where it's like, are there also animals in the are there birds? Or is it just all bird Pokemon?
Described as a mouse Pokemon, and it's like, what the fuck is a mouse?
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm deeply concerned that there is a hierarchical oppression of Muppet versions of animals, in that they're not treated any different even though they're capable of sentience, which I think is what qualifies you for not getting dissected, as if you have the intelligence of a human, maybe you shouldn't be dissected.
Yeah, or maybe it's like, because the thing about the kid saying hi to Kermit as if he's just some random, maybe it's like a childlike wonder, kind of like it's the power of belief or something like that.
Right. All of this stuff feels like there's an answer to it, but no one's thought of it.
Well, something like Kermit Swamp Years very clearly is like, you know, putting them kind of, but something like the Muppet Show or like the Muppet Movie is just like, yeah, these guys are just celebrities that look different to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a piece of dumb IMDb trivia for you from this movie.
Lay it on me.
So Kermit is the only regular Muppet to appear in the movie, unless you count Statler and Waldorf's cameo in the movie theater. It's like, yeah, I do count them.
Yeah. Why would I not? They're in the movie.
Why would I not count them? So yeah, that's about all I have to talk. I've written here, doesn't really offer much in the way of a Kermit origin. Do you think that this could have been more focused on being how Kermit became Kermit? Or is it fine the way it is?
Because I like the idea that the Muppets are like big celebrities. And so it would have been cool to have him like get a book deal from his adventure or something like that, you know? Like
or maybe he doesn't have his little collar thing until the end. I don't know. I don't even know what that's supposed to be. Is it part of his skin, or is it?
Or is he wearing like a green bodysuit and that's the collar of it?
What's up with his eyes? I looked that up. I looked up why are Kermit's eyes like that?
Because that's what frogs' eyes are like.
But they're not like that. There is a frog that looks like Kermit that was discovered recently that has eyes like that, which is a crazy thing to happen. But
no, there are definitely frogs with eyes like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. What do I know?
Like Hypnotoad.
Oh, of course, Hypnotoad.
That famous
real frog.
I just see a picture of a frog. Real life Kermit frog.
It's got a real dumb name. So
oh my god, that does look like Kermit. Holy shit.
Yeah. What's it called?
Real life Kermit frog. It's a see-through frog.
What? I don't remember it being a see-through frog.
Yeah, it's not. Diane's bare-hearted glass frog.
No, I've got the Hyalinobatrachium Dianae. That's supposed to be the glass frog. Okay, it's called the glass frog.
Yeah.
Look up the glass frog. All right, well, that was fun. It's a very merry Muppet Christmas movie in 2002, Richard. Oh, very cool. Now we're getting into the season. This was directed by Kirk R. Thatcher, who we tweeted before. It does have both an audience score and a critic score, and since we've counted audience scores so far, I thought I'd count this one as well. So what do you think the audience score is for this movie?
68.
It's 51. It's pretty low,
yeah.
But it does have an 82% critic score for some reason. So strange kind of inversion of what we usually see here, where it's usually that... dumb audience members will like whatever they're given.
Like Boondock Saints.
Yeah, exactly. So this was a made-for-TV movie that was released in 2002 for Christmas time, and it is one of the few Muppet-related productions that are currently not owned by the Walt Disney Company.
Yeah, Kermit Swamp Years is another one.
Right, okay, there you go. This is owned by NBC, which is kind of interesting, and we'll see a lot of connections to NBC later on. So what is the plot of It's a Very Merry Muppet Christmas Movie?
So it's a we talk about like the Prince and the Pauper kind of story structure, and there's those kind of like classic tales that are reused. This is the It's a Wonderful Life thing. So
yeah, if you're doing a Christmas special for your intellectual property, you're either doing It's a Wonderful Life or you're doing A Christmas Carol, and the Muppets have done both. So there you go.
So how do we get to so there's this whole thing about there's an angel played by Dave Arquette from Scream, whose boss, God, played by Whoopi Goldberg, essentially...
Well, they never call her God. Very wisely, I thought, because they'd probably get in trouble for that.
But yeah, so the Muppets are going through financial hardship. The David Arquette wants to help Kermit, and Whoopi Goldberg kind of doesn't let him intervene until the last minute by doing the classic It's a Wonderful Life, showing what it was, what life would be like if he was never born. Yeah. They're being shut down by Joan Cusack as well.
Yeah, they're losing the Muppet Theatre.
It's essentially the plot of the Muppets 2011.
That's true.
Yeah.
What did you think of this movie?
Oh, that was great. I love this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably the best one we watched, I think.
Yeah. It's got Matthew Lillard in it as well.
Oh my god, he's so funny. He's only in it for a little bit, but he plays a French guy named Luc Fromage, and when he's introduced, he goes, "I am Luc Fromage, but not like this stinky cheese." And then Gonzo goes, "No, it's a completely different smell." And I was like, that's so funny. Like, there's a Muppet sense of humor that I feel is like better than what you might expect. If you don't know anything about it, you might think it's like dumb family-friendly stuff, but there's almost a Simpsonian sense of humor to a lot of the like better Muppet productions, I think.
And then so there's a scene as well. We see Miss Piggy her acting career, and she does a guest spot on Scrubs, and so
this was crazy.
Yeah,
we see insane.
Zach Braff as JD with Sarah Chalk as Elliot, and the janitor's there, Dr. Cox, and even and Carla as well, and even Bill Lawrence.
Yeah, the creator of the show.
Of the show.
Watching him act as the director, I was like, you never directed an episode of Scrubs. You'd never be sitting there with your headphones on. So it felt weird to see a whole segment with the cast of Scrubs because it's like a partial scene from early Scrubs, which I'd never seen before. Right. Like, so it felt like I was seeing a new episode of, like, a lost episode of Scrubs from 20 years ago.
Yeah, because you and I both, like, fucking grew up on Scrubs. Like,
yeah.
Scrubs is underrated as, like, one of my all-time favorite TV shows kind of thing. I don't think about it as often as I should. But William H. Macy pops up. Mel Brooks has a voice cameo.
Yep.
Joe Rogan's in it.
Joe Rogan's in it. Kelly Ripa is in it.
Yeah. Molly Shannon, the Triumph, the insult comic dog. Joe Rogan's cameo was my favorite bit of the movie, probably. Because it's when Kermit sees what life would be like if he's never born. Which there's a big thing in that, which we'll talk about after this.
We'll talk about.
We see Rizzo is like a rat in a segment of Fear Factor. So it's like back when Joe Rogan was the host of Fear Factor. So it's this woman's head is like in a glass box, and then they take away this partition and Rizzo's on the other side, and they both just start screaming like Rizzo's terrified of this head, and then they're like, "Oh, come on, you gotta bite the rat. You gotta take a bite out of it. First bite's the hardest." And he's just like screaming. It's so funny.
It is funny. I thought this was a lot more adult oriented. This and the next one had like borderline dirty jokes in it that I didn't know the Muppets did. I didn't know they went that far. I mean, it's not crazy. It's just like there's essentially Pepe the prawn sells out the other Muppets and joins the side of Joan Cusack, and he's very explicitly trying to fuck Joan Cusack, and he like they say the word sexy, you know. So it feels
Pepe's like whole thing is that he's like a bit of a deviant.
Yeah. I like Pepe. My first exposure to Pepe the prawn was in Muppet Monsters on PS1, where he's like your guide, because you play as Robin, and he's your guide, and he'd be like, "Welcome to the game, okay?" It's okay after everything, and it's so funny. It's such a funny character, and I feel like he was invented for these kind of interstitial Muppet adventures that aren't like part of necessarily the main movies, because he works really well as like almost like a spirit guide through things, because he's just like surface level funny, you know. So I thought, as funny as this is, there is this one segment which I was like, this is like date movie level bad, like this like scary movie level bad, where it's like Fozzie has to get the money to Joan Cusack, and it's this whole segment of how he gets like distracted on his way, and it starts with a Steve Irwin impersonator trying to capture him, and then there's like a Grinch, an extended Grinch parody
he
that
gets
happens.
Dyed green by accident,
and there's like people who dressed up like the Who's from Whoville, and it was like, this is very 2002. I don't know if this is any good, and it's like, they don't get the official Steve Irwin, who was still alive in 2002. And it's like, how hard is Steve Irwin to get? God, he must be so easy to get for this kind of thing, surely.
Well, not anymore.
No, I know not anymore. I'm not saying that. I'm saying in 2002, if you can't get Steve Irwin for that segment, Just don't include the segment. You got Mel Brooks. He's harder to get than Steve Irwin, surely.
Well, not these days.
No, you're right. I don't know why you keep specifying that. I think I'm being very clear that I'm talking about the time and the place. So the biggest kind of talking point that I'm sure plenty of other podcasts have talked about, I know, did Cracked do it? Was it an episode of After Hours?
Probably. On
Cracked.com, I think that's where I first saw it, is that this would have been filmed in 2001, and so there's a scene in Kermit.
That's actually not true. That's not part of it.
Oh, really?
Tell the story and then I'll tell the explanation.
Well, do you just want to tell the story then?
I can if you want. So, when Kermit the Frog, it wasn't. This would have been filmed probably earlier in 2002, but Kermit, he sees what life would be like if he's never born, and then he goes to Miss Piggy's New York apartment, and you can very clearly see out the window the World Trade Center, the Twin Towers, meaning that somehow Kermit being born directly results in 9/11 happening. Because in 2002, when he hasn't been born, the World Trade Center is still standing. The explanation is that Kirk R. Thatcher has commented on it, and maybe if we interview him, we can get in his own words. But he said that because this was filmed in Canada, I believe, and it was just like the New York City backdrop that's available. So it's like on a set, they put the big painted backdrop up. And so that's what it is. It's not, it wasn't the actual World Trade Center. It was just like, yeah, cool, this is New York. And no one thought to be like, oh, should we maybe use a different part of the skyline?
That's it, right, eh? Like, use a different part of the skyline. Come on.
Yeah.
So.
But it is fun that, that it's like, we're canonically shown in the Muppets that Kermit did 9/11.
Well, he didn't do it. It's just for some reason
he's responsible.
It directly caused 9/11. Which also begs the question, maybe it's kind of worth him not being born. Maybe it's kind of worth the Muppet Theatre being lost.
It's like, yeah, Rizzo's on Fear Factor, but oh my god, almost 3,000 Americans died.
I mean, we've already seen that in Kermit Swamp Years, that Muppets aren't treated as equal to humans, so, maybe it is worth
imagine, if you had the option to save all the lives lost on 9/11, or the life of one frog.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
If you could go back in time and kill Kermit, would you? Go back to his swamp years?
Smother a tadpole.
Smother it, just take it out of the water. Oh no, they're amphibious. It'd be okay. I think that's actually one thing I'm disappointed with Kermit Swamp Years, is it feels like obviously we should see the tadpole version of Kermit.
Yeah.
Even if it's just at the start. Obviously we should see that. That sounds fascinating to see. Alright, dumb IMDb trivia for this film. Snoop Dogg filmed a cameo appearance, but a scene was deleted. In an interview with Kermit the Frog on The Late Late Show with Craig Kilborn, Kermit stated that because of Snoop Dogg's involvement in Doggy Style, the movie, it was considered inappropriate to have him appear in a Muppet movie. And just, it sounds like such a serious thing to talk about on a late night show with Kermit the Frog as the guest. Like, I'm trying to imagine what that would have looked like. You're like, well, we were going to have Snoop Dogg on, but we just thought that because he was in a movie called Doggy Style.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure Doggy Style is actually like it's like a pornographic movie.
Well, that wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Look up Doggy Style.
Doggy Style movie. Yeah, it's like I remember reading about this years ago. It's like actually like an explicit thing, and it's just presented by Snoop Dogg.
Well, clearly the creators of the new SpongeBob movie didn't have the same concern.
Why?
Because he's in Snoop Dogg's.
Oh, yeah.
What do you mean, why?
I just wanted you to explain it. Yeah, it's Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style is a mixed hardcore pornography and a hip hop music video starring the music of the rapper Snoop Dogg, presented by him. So that means that like Kermit the Frog is aware of like this.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
The Muppets Wizard of Oz, Richard, in 2005, also directed by Kirk R. Thatcher. This has an audience score and a critic score. What do you think they are?
68.
The audience score is 36 and the critic score is 30. So we are getting to the less well-received editions of this sort of pocket of Muppet feature films. And I think I agree. I think this is probably the least fun I had watching one of these movies for this fortnight. But can you tell us what the Muppets Wizard? It should be the Muppets of Oz. It should be the Muppets of Oz, but it's not. Can you tell us what the Muppets Wizard of Oz is about?
So it's the story of the Wizard of Oz, updated a little bit. So it stars Ashanti as Dorothy. She works in a diner. And wants
Queen
to be a singer.
Latifah is Aunt Em.
Yeah, and she wants to be a singer. She auditions for the Muppets, traveling show, and then she, they get sent to Oz, and
there's a storm and a hurricane, and her pet prawn Toto gets sent to Oz.
And so
and then when they arrive in Oz, their pet prawn is now Pepe the Prawn.
And so we've got Kermit as the Scarecrow, you've got Gonzo as the Tin Man, and you've got Fozzie Bear as the Cowardly Lion. And then off they go to Oz.
It does the story of the Wizard of Oz and then adds a lot afterwards.
Yeah, the witches are Miss Piggy. So she plays like all of them. And Quentin Tarantino shows up in the extended version in quite a funny scene. There's like a fight scene, and then it cuts to Quentin Tarantino pitching the fight scene, and it's very bloody and gory. Like he's pitching it to Kermit out of character, Kermit being the executive of the Muppets. And he's like, and then this happens, and Kermit's like sinking into his seat, like terrified.
It's on I put photos of it on our Instagram if you want to see it.
Yeah, over
at Cole Popshire on Instagram. His name is in the opening credits, and I was like, who does Quentin Tarantino play? Is he the wizard? Is he the Wizard of Oz? Because one of the funnest things about watching Muppet movies is getting excited by the opening credits. You think you're going to watch just a normal Muppet movie, and then you're watching It's a Very Merry Muppets.
And then it says, as the characters from Scrubs.
So that was fun. What did you think of the Muppets Wizard of Oz?
Well, again, this is kind of, it's closer to the floor of of things I can enjoy, but it's still the Muppets. I'm still having a great time. Exactly.
I think it did go a bit too long, is all I'll say.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, we did watch the extended version because this one actually has an extended version.
I think the best joke in this is that when they first arrive in Oz and Ashanti and Pepe walk out on the yellow brick road, Pepe then turns to the camera and says, "For those of you playing Dark Side of the Moon, start it now."
Yeah,
which is a very fun joke. According to Wikipedia, the film received mixed to negative reviews from critics who felt that the film was too mature for young audiences and that the cameos and popular culture references were unnecessary. I'll concede that most kids watching this probably don't know who Quentin Tarantino is. But I did think that the mature for young audience thing was interesting because, as I said, the Muppets is a bit dirtier than what I was expecting. And they say nipples in this film. They say Gonzo says the word nipples when someone asks.
Oh my God, it's so funny.
What the buttons are on his Tin Man body. He goes, "Those are my nipples." And it's like, oh God, okay.
That is a very funny joke though, because he starts playing with them. He's like, "What do these do?" I think they're my nipples.
Yeah. I think the worst thing about the film, though, is that it tries to pay homage to the Wizard of Oz film by desaturating all the stuff before Oz. And it's supposed to, evoke, it's black and white, but it just looks like shit. They should have gone full black and white. They should have just made it black and white until they get to Oz. So that's that. Jeffrey Tambor plays the Wizard of Oz. Ooh. Someone who was kind of half cancelled. Enough cancelled to get kicked off his TV show, but not cancelled enough to be, kicked out of Hollywood.
Yeah, to be erased from the Muppets. Wizard of Oz. It's also not going to be his last appearance on our Muppets episodes.
Interesting.
Because he's in Muppets in Space as well.
And he is, I think, I don't know if this is worth talking about because I'm usually I usually don't want to like praise bad people, but God, Jeffrey Tambor's funny. Like, not even just in Arrested Development, I think he's like hilarious, and the control he has on the comedic value of his character in Arrested Development, I think, is one of the best in the cast.
Yeah.
But he's real funny in this as well, so I guess that was just worth mentioning. I can't remember any of the jokes, but I did laugh at some of the stuff he said. So here's a cool piece of trivia about Muppets Wizard of Oz, Richard, is that Kermit, Fozzie, and Gonzo play the same Wizard of Oz roles that they did in an episode of Muppet Babies called By the Book. So, do you know about Muppet Babies?
Yeah.
So it's like an animated
2D animated,
2D animated Muppets as Babies show, and there was a Wizard of Oz episode where Kermit played the Scarecrow, Fozzie played the Lion, and Gonzo played the Tin Man.
That's great.
Which I think is kind of fun and probably unintentional, because I guess those are the three characters that
they
lend
make sense
themselves
to be
most.
those things.
Yeah. So any more thoughts on Muppets Wizard of Oz? This was always going to be a short episode. I was ready for it. I knew it would be.
Yeah, it's not that this episode probably wouldn't even count as a feature Muppet film.
It's true. Do you have any more thoughts though on Wizard of Oz? There's a fun Statler and Waldorf scene where they're where the main characters are crossing a bridge, and Statler and Waldorf are roasting them as they do, and because Fozzie the Lion wants to be a comedian, it hurts him. I said before that it extends beyond the Wizard of Oz story, and there's this crazy part where they have to go and kill Miss Piggy's evil witch, and
there's like a dominatrix Miss Piggy.
Yeah, and she kills. Well, Fozzie runs off and she kills the Scarecrow and the Tin Man, and you just see a decapitated Kermit and a decapitated Gonzo on the ground, and I was like, this is crazy.
It's like Age of Ultron shit.
Yeah. So that was fun. I thought, I just like all the Muppets. Who's the name of the Muppets that's like a Frank Sinatra parody?
Which one?
You know that Muppet? He was in the last two we watched. And he's like, I think he's supposed to be Frank Sinatra. Johnny Fiamma. Johnny Fiamma is his name.
Oh, yeah.
You'll know him. Look him up. Look up Johnny Fiamma. Fiama.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's hilarious, man. Just because his eyebrows move independently of his face, and that's I don't know. I just thought he was funny, and he's in the Wizard of Oz one as well.
I also there's one of the strangest Muppets, who's not in a lot. He's in a couple of these. They mention him, but Lou Zealand, L-E-W
he's in
Zealand.
A couple of these.
And his thing is he throws fish that return to the boomerang fish. His catchphrase is, "I throw the fish away and it comes back to me."
Wow. Great stuff. Some of this Muppet stuff feels like it was made in a fever dream, I think.
Yeah.
All right, so that is all we're going to talk about for these straight-to-DVD movies or TV movies. And, I don't regret it. I think it was cool to see.
Well, that's the thing. You don't waste time if you're watching the Muppets.
Exactly, and it's cool to see what would be considered like a lesser tier of Muppet film before watching the proper ones. So we're going to continue the franchise now, where we each pitch our own straight-to-DVD Muppet film, and to talk about all the stuff we left out is a whole thing. We'll probably do Letters to Santa as part of film franchise follow-ups. So check that out probably this month. What do you ever continue the franchise? Do you have a straight-to-DVD?
Do you want to go first?
So we talk. We'll maybe talk about this more next fortnight. But we talked about Miss Piggy as a Muppet and how she's kind of a problematic character now because she's very abusive towards Kermit, and it's stuff that 30 years ago was able to be treated as a joke that now we maybe need to take a bit more seriously.
Yeah.
Because
I think the Muppets show on ABC and maybe Muppets Now have tackled a lot. They've toned it down and kind of addressed the fact that it's a very unhealthy relationship.
Yeah. So I would like to see Miss Piggy's farm years, a prequel origin story for Miss Piggy, because watching her in these, I'm like, you're right, she seems so unsympathetic, but I'd love to learn that there's this trauma in her backstory that like kind of explains the kind of character. I want to sympathize with Miss Piggy, and I'm sure this exists in some way, shape or form, like in the Muppets oeuvre, but like I want to see that. I want to sympathize with Miss Piggy. So I'm pitching Miss Piggy's Farm Years as a prequel story about Miss Piggy. And in it, she chases a frog, and it's a real frog, and it's the other side of that scene. And so we do confirm that until you believe, you see Muppets as other animals.
I love it. Very cool. My idea is, so going off the whole the idea of The Wizard of Oz and It's a Wonderful Life being used. I was trying to think of like what other kind of films you could take the basic premise of and shove Muppets into it.
That's a good point, because all of these, except for Kermit's Swamp Years, are just public domain.
Yeah.
Story. Well, I guess It's a Wonderful Life isn't, but it's parody. Like all the other ones are just like, no, this story, now see it with the Muppets.
Yeah. But so I googled classic movies, and the number one result, bizarrely, but it works for this, was The Magnificent Seven. Because like that Seven Samurai kind of, a troop of people, come a professional or like faux professionals, potentially coming together to help like a small town, and I think that could work, translate quite well to the Muppets.
Let's have it star in the human cast. Let's have it star Cole Sprouse.
Oh.
Bob Odenkirk. I'm going like TV actors who would be in like a TV movie special.
Bob Odenkirk would 100% be in a Muppet movie.
Yeah.
He'd
Maybe
be the
Millie
villain.
Bobby Brown. No, Millie Bobby Brown would be in a theatrical one, I think.
Yeah.
She's too good for TV, even though she's on Stranger Things. But that's movie TV.
Yeah.
Nice. Cool. Good work. Okay, well, usually at this point in the show, we rank the franchise. I think you're going to be annoyed at me saying this, but I feel like we should rank all the Muppets as one thing.
Sure.
Yeah, because this is less like they're two separate franchises and more like we wanted to differentiate between the two types.
Yeah.
Of
Actually,
Muppet
do you know what
movies.
would be a cool classic film to redo with the Muppets that could explore the dynamic of Miss Piggy and Kermit's abusive relationship? Casablanca.
Yeah, but the gender switched.
Yeah.
Kirby! Who's looking at you, Kirby? Cool. Well, hey, that is our first episode on the Muppets. I imagine our next one will be probably twice as long as this one.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for that. We've got our post-credit scene, which we need to record.
For 2 weeks.
Coming up. Yeah. Next week, we're going to do Netflixmas Part 2, which I cannot wait to be done with Netflixmas this year. So thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. Let us know what you thought about the Muppets on our various channels. You can find us on our Discord, is a great way to contact us. So there'll be a link to the Discord in the show notes. And you can also support us on Patreon for what, between $1 and $15 a month, depending on what rewards you want to get.
Really, you can do whatever you want.
That's true. So you can do that if you like. That's patreon.com/cultpopture. And you can also support us on all our social medias like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, fucking all those places. So thank you very much for listening, everybody. And it's time to stop the music. It's time to turn off the lights. It's time to end the episode on the Film Franchise Fortnight show tonight.
Yeah, that's great.
Welcome along to the Cult Popture post-credit
And
scene
thank you
at the end
for
of each
sticking
episode.
along with us. I
Thank
just
you
moved
very
my
much.
microphone as I said that. Sorry if it sounded shit.
That's okay. This is a segment, it's part of each podcast we do, where if you go to our Patreon and pay $5 or more a month, you get to give us a topic to talk about, ask us a question, what have you, whatever. And Richard, this time our question comes from Blank McBlankface on Patreon, and this is one of those, similar to Jensen's rap battle, he's given us one that we've kind of been avoiding to the point where we cannot avoid it anymore, because it's a lot more work, and this is maybe a cheap way to answer it, but it promises something better. So he says, hey guys, I loved AJ's Pirates of the Caribbean song from our Pirates of the Caribbean film franchise Fortnights episode, and found the idea of making a very musical Disney-esque animated reboots of live-action properties incredibly fun. Also incredibly frustrating because it would be so good and it will never happen. What are some other properties that you think would work very well or even better as this type of animation? What's the title track, and could you possibly grace us with a few lines? Thanks, Austin. Now, look, I was going to go all out and write a song, but I'll say this: we'll do an episode on this next year. We'll do like a proper hour long. You know what I mean? Like let's just do when we come back after in the new year. Not that we go anywhere. This podcast actually doesn't have a break, so maybe we can do it then. Maybe we can do movies that should be animated Disney musicals, rebooted, whatever the title is. That doesn't mean I don't have an idea.
Okay.
Because I think that one of the purposes of this is a way to revisit a film that you don't necessarily want to see done in the same way out of fear of ruining it, but you would like to remain in that universe somehow. Right? Yeah. And I think a great example for that for me would be Back to the Future. And so I'll probably do this on the full episode, is I would love to pitch a Disney-esque animated musical reboot of Back to the Future. And you know, what would be some of the title tracks?
Back in Time.
In the Back to the Future. Back in Time,
Power Love. I do. There is, that made me think of, there's like an old YouTube video I remember seeing that was like Back to the Future the musical, and the only thing I remember about it is, you know, the like da 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 da. It was like, so the whole thing was like to the tune of that, and it was say what you want about me, but I'm going to save history.
That's exactly what it would be. Wow, that's interesting. That it looks like someone's already stolen that.
Well, it's obviously the kind of, not animated, but it's the kind of thing that would, you know, it's obviously going to be a musical. I think there is like a Broadway musical coming of Back to the Future.
So dismantling it like you would a Disney film, you'd have an I Want song. So what does Marty McFly want?
To go up to the lake and fuck.
Well, he wants to be taken seriously, right?
Yeah. The musical came out this year. It's written by Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale, and the music and lyrics by Alan Silvestri.
What am I doing? Are you serious? Yeah. So it's just a Disney musical?
Well, no, it's a Broadway musical.
Yeah, but it's with all the people that you'd want to get on board. Yeah. Is it Alan Silvestri's a Disney guy, isn't he?
No, he did he's done Disney music. He did the Avengers, but he did the music for Back to the Future.
Damn. Okay. Well, there goes my idea to already do a cheap answer to Austin's question. But hey, give me a Star Wars Disney animated musical. You know, retell the prequels as one movie with songs in it. That'd be fun. I mean, it may be too tragic.
Yeah.
Maybe Disney musicals don't tend to be tragedies. Do you have any movies that you'd like to see remade as a animated Disney musical?
The Muppets.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much, Alston, or Blank McBlankface.
Alston.
And I promise we will do your idea justice by doing an actual episode on it next year. Cool. See you later, everybody.